Welcome back to another deep dive. Today's going to be a little different. Usually I grab a stack of articles on, I don't know, supply chains or biohacking, and we just go to town.
Yeah, we usually have a lot of different sources to compare.
Right. But this week I picked up this single text called The Pentagon Door by Z.T. Tosha, and I have to be honest with you, listener, I almost put it down after the first 3 pages.
That is a very specific reaction. What scared you off? The title?
No, it was the flashbacks. High school geometry, compasses, protractors, proofs I completely failed to understand.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I looked at the table of contents and saw things like rhombic triicontohedrons and five-fold symmetry, and I thought, okay, this is a math textbook. I'm definitely not qualified for this.
It can definitely look that way at first glance.
But then, right under the math, it starts talking about the nature of the human soul. And my mission for this deep dive basically became figuring out what if the shape of your bathroom floor tile could actually explain how human consciousness works?
And that is exactly why this text is such a hidden gem. Right. I mean, it is a treatise on geometry, strictly speaking, but calling it a math book is like saying Alice in Wonderland is a guide to rabbit husbandry.
That's a great way to put it.
Tosha is using geometry as a language, really as a metaphor, to talk about consciousness, memory, and how we construct our reality. The whole journey of the text is moving from what he calls dualistic thinking to non-dual thinking.
Right. From black and white perspectives to relational patterns. And he doesn't use vague spirituality to do it. He uses the golden ratio as the bridge.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack that, because non-dual thinking usually makes my eyes glaze over. But the way he sets this up, he starts with a story, the supermarket allegory in chapter 1. And honestly, this was the moment I realized we weren't really talking about math. It felt more like a psychological thriller.
It's a brilliant way to ground the concept. So he asks you to imagine a self-checkout lane. You walk up with a box of tea. You scan the barcode. Beep. And on the little screen, an image of the tea box pops up.
Simple enough. I do this like 3 times a week.
Right. Then another person walks up to a completely different register with the exact same box of tea. They scan it. Beep. They see the image of the tea on their screen.
Okay, so we are both buying tea. Where is the deep philosophical insight here?
The insight is in what you don't see. You never actually see the barcode itself the way the machine sees it. You only see the image on your screen.
Right.
And more importantly, you can never ever see what is on the other person's screen. You just assume it's the same image, but you can't verify it from where you're standing.
Wait, hold on. So the barcode in this analogy is reality.
Exactly. The barcode is the external world, the tree, the car accident, the conversation we're having right now. That is the raw data. But we never experience the raw data directly. We only ever see the image on the screen, which is our internal experience processed by our specific hardware.
That is actually kind of terrifying. It's like solipsism light. You're saying there is no master screen we can all look at to check who's right.
Tosha is adamant about this. There is no master screen. We go through life acting like there's one objective movie playing that we are all watching together.
But we aren't.
No, actually, we are all trapped in our own private movie theaters, staring at our own screens, trying to describe the plot to each other through a wall.
And usually arguing about it, like, my screen says the tea is green, while my screen says it's teal.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that friction is where conflict comes from. But the text takes this screen analogy and applies it to something even more personal, memory.
Right, chapter 1 gets deep into memory versus remembering.
Yeah, and this is where I think the text really challenges the way most of us operate. How do you visualize your memory, usually?
I mean, like a file cabinet,
Yep.
or maybe a hard drive. I have a folder labeled 8th grade birthday party. I open it, look at the photo, and put it back.
That's the archive model.
Yeah.
Tosha says that is complete nonsense. He argues that memory as a static noun, a thing you just store away, doesn't actually exist. He makes a hard distinction between memory and remembering.
Okay, what's the difference?
Remembering is a verb. It's a live performance. When you recall that birthday party, you aren't retrieving a file. You are literally regenerating the experience right now in the present moment.
Oh, wow.
You're taking the raw data, the barcode, and processing it through the screen of who you are today.
So if I'm in a bad mood today, the memory of the party plays back differently than if I'm in a good mood.
Exactly. You are remixing the track every time you play it. It's an act of creation, not retrieval.
That makes me feel very unreliable as a narrator of my own life.
It does. It means we are constantly rewriting our own pasts just by observing them.
But I get it. It's fluid.
And this fluidity is scary for people.
Yeah.
We want things to be solid. We want the file cabinet. And that desire for solidity brings us to the recurring character in the book, the alchemist.
Ah, yes, the alchemist. I honestly felt bad for this guy. He's introduced as this figure who is obsessed, and I mean obsessed, with building a perfect cube.
He wants the perfect shape. Symmetrical, stable, predictable. The cube is the ultimate symbol of the archive. It's a box. You can put things in it. It stacks perfectly.
But he can't make it. Every time he tries to cast this cube, it comes out wrong. It's slanted, it's skewed, it's imperfect. And he views this as a massive personal failure.
He thinks he's spiraling downward. But the text argues he's actually in a spiral of becoming.
A spiral of becoming.
Yes, if he made the perfect cube, he'd be done. He would have created a closed system. The failure, the imperfection, is what keeps him moving and growing.
This is where we have to pivot to the geometry, because the alchemist's obsession with the cube is linked to what the text calls the checkerboard mindset. And this is where I need you to help me visualize this, because I really don't want us to get lost in the math here.
Let's keep it simple. Picture a checkerboard, infinite. Black square, white square, black square, white square.
Okay, a retro bathroom floor. Got it.
It's clean, it's orderly, but it's also a dead pattern. Because once you see 4 squares, you have seen the entire universe. You know exactly what the tile is going to be a million miles away. It predicts itself perfectly.
It's boring.
It's extremely repetitive, and this is the geometric metaphor for dualism. It's binary. Yes or no. Success or failure. Good or bad. It's a grid that locks you in.
And the alchemist basically wants to build this grid. He wants safety.
Correct. But the universe of this text doesn't work on a grid. It works on the Penrose tiling.
Okay, I looked at pictures of this when I was reading chapter 2. It's trippy. It doesn't look like a floor. It looks like a kaleidoscope that exploded.
It's beautiful, isn't it? The Penrose tiling is famous because it is a periodic. That means you can cover an infinite floor with these tiles, and the pattern will never repeat.
Never. Like, if I walk a mile in one direction, I won't ever see the same chunk of floor I started on.
Never. There is no repeating unit cell. You cannot cut a square out of the floor, slide it over, and have it match. Every single step you take is on a completely unique configuration of tiles.
That sounds exhausting to lay down as a contractor. But what makes it work? Because the checkerboard is easy, squares just fit together.
The Penrose tiling is made of different shapes. The text focuses on the Pentagon as the seed. Now imagine trying to tile your bathroom with only regular pentagons.
I'm picturing it. They don't fit. You'd have V-shaped gaps everywhere.
Exactly. A square is a herd animal. It loves to pack together. A pentagon is an individualist. It absolutely refuses to tile the plane alone. It creates gaps.
So it's the awkward introvert of the geometry world.
Or the rebel. But here is the magic rule. Because it has gaps, it needs companions. To fill those gaps, you need other shapes. The text mentions the star, the boat, the diamond, sometimes called tights and darts. The pentagon must interact with different shapes to create a solid floor.
I see where this is going. The checkerboard is, I am white because I am not black. It's opposition.
Yes.
The Penrose is collaboration.
It's relation. Identity in the Penrose world is defined by who is next to you. The pentagon isn't the opposite of the star. It's the neighbor that completes the star. The text calls this unity without repetition.
Unity without repetition. That is a cool phrase. But it feels chaotic. If it never repeats, what keeps it from just being a mess? There has to be some kind of rule, right?
There is a rule, a very strict one, and it's governed by the golden ratio. Phi, 1.618.
The number everyone brings up when talking about Renaissance paintings and seashells.
It's a cliche for a reason. In the Penrose tiling, the relationship between the tiles, the length of the side of the pentagon versus the side of the star, is exactly the golden ratio. It is the invisible glue holding the whole universe together.
So even though the pattern never repeats, the proportion is constant?
Exactly. It's locally unpredictable, but globally ordered.
Okay, that makes sense. But then the book takes a turn, chapter 3. We go from cool floor tiles to the golden rhombus and multiple dimensions. And I have to admit, this is where I started drawing huge question marks in the margins.
You aren't alone. This is the threshold chapter.
The text says something about our 3D world being a shadow of a higher dimension. And I know I've heard that in sci-fi movies, but what does it actually mean here?
Let's slow this down. Imagine you have a wire cube, just the skeleton of a cube hanging in the air. Now, shine a light on it so it casts a shadow on a flat wall.
Okay, the shadow is 2D, the cube is 3D.
Right. Now, if the cube is hanging perfectly straight, the shadow looks like a square. Simple, regular.
Sure.
But what if you rotate the cube? What happens to the shadow?
It morphs, it stretches out, it looks like a hexagon, Or maybe two trapezoids mashed together?
Exactly. It looks distorted. It looks complex. If you were a 2D stick figure living on that wall and you saw this morphing shadow, you'd think, wow, what a complicated, changing, irregular shape.
Because I wouldn't have the context.
Right. You wouldn't realize it's actually a projection of a simple, perfect cube that's just spinning in a dimension you can't see.
Okay, I'm with you. The mess on the wall is a projection of order in the air.
Now, buckle up. Tosha argues that the Penrose tiling, that beautiful, non-repeating complex pattern we see on the floor, is mathematically a shadow. It's a slice of a perfectly regular lattice in 6 dimensions.
6 dimensions.
6. So somewhere in 6D space, there is a boring, perfect hypergrid, and we are just living in its funky, interesting shadow.
In a way, yes. The complexity of our world, the fact that things don't repeat, that history doesn't perfectly loop, is just what higher dimensional order looks like when it hits our 3D limits.
That is heavy. It implies that what we think is chaos or imperfection is actually just a lack of perspective. We literally can't see the full cube.
That's the main philosophical takeaway. But here is where it gets really wild. This isn't just philosophy. This is actual physics.
Right.
This specific geometry, the 6D shadow, the non-repeating pattern, was discovered in physical matter. We need to talk about quasicrystals.
Yes. Segment 4, Dan Sheckman. This story actually made me angry on his behalf. It's a classic story of scientific dogma. It's 1982. Sheckman is looking at an alloy of aluminum and manganese under an electron microscope, and he sees a pattern of atoms that has 5-fold symmetry.
And for those of us who didn't major in crystallography, why is that a problem?
Because it was absolutely forbidden. Mathematically, scientists believed you could not pack atoms in a 5-fold pattern without leaving gaps. It's just like the bathroom floor problem we talked about earlier. You can't tile a floor with just pentagons. So classical crystallography laws said crystals can have 2, 3, 4, or 6-fold symmetry, never 5.
So he sees a 5, and he tells his colleagues.
And they laughed at him, literally. His lab head handed him a textbook and said, go read the basics. He was eventually asked to leave his research group. They called him a quasi-scientist.
Ouch, quasi-scientist, that is just petty.
But he was right. He had discovered a totally new state of matter. He found materials where the atoms were arranged in that Penrose pattern, ordered, but not periodic. They were quasicrystals.
And the building blocks for these in 3D are the acute or thick rhombohedron and the obtuse thin rhombohedron. Neither can fill space alone. They need each other, just like the 2D tiles.
Exactly.
And because of this weird structure, this forbidden structure, these things have superpowers, right? The text mentions frying pans.
Right. Think about a non-stick pan. Teflon. It's slippery, but it's soft. You can scratch it with a fork.
Every pan I own is scratched.
Metal is usually hard, but it's not slippery. Quasicrystals are weird. They are incredibly hard, like steel, but slippery like Teflon. And it's all because of the geometry.
How does the geometry make it slippery?
Friction usually happens when two surfaces lock into each other. Think of two gears meshing. The teeth fit into the grooves. But a quasicrystal has no repeating pattern. There are no regular grooves for another material to lock into. It is slippery because it's aperiodic.
And why is it so hard?
In a normal crystal, like a diamond or salt, there are cleavage planes, straight lines where the atoms line up perfectly. If you hit it there, it cracks.
Like splitting a log along the grain.
Exactly. But a quasicrystal has no grain. The pattern is so interlocked and complex, remember it's the 6D shadow, that there are no straight lines of weakness. To break it, you have to break the atomic bonds everywhere at once. It's tough because it's complex.
I just love that. The thing that made it forbidden, its lack of standard repetition, is exactly what makes it unbreakable. Oh, and the text mentioned they're insulators too, right?
Yes, that's the third superpower. They don't conduct heat well at all. Heat travels through vibrations, and in a regular crystal, the repeating pattern lets those vibrations travel easily. In a quasicrystal, the lack of repetition disrupts the heat vibrations completely.
It's like the ultimate defense mechanism. And this brings us perfectly back to our friend the alchemist in Chapter 5.
Yes, let's resolve his arc, the grand synthesis. We left him depressed because his cubes were skewed. Well, if you look at the building blocks of a quasicrystal in 3D, they aren't perfect cubes. They are rhombohedra, basically cubes that have been squashed or stretched along the diagonal.
Wait, so the alchemist wasn't messing up?
He wasn't failing to make a cube. He was successfully making a rhombohedron. He was building the unit cell of a quasicrystal.
So his failure was actually the discovery of a higher order.
Precisely. If he had succeeded in making his perfect cube, he would have just built another checkerboard, another boring dead grid.
Yeah.
By failing, he opened the door to the Penrose world, to the spiral of becoming.
That hits home. How many times have we beaten ourselves up for not fitting into a box when maybe the box was the problem?
That is the central message. And Tosha wraps this all up with the allegory of the two halls.
This is the visual I really want to leave everyone with. Walk us through the two halls.
Imagine you have a choice of two corridors to walk down. Hall 1 has the checkerboard floor.
The machine.
Yes, you walk down it. Black, white, black, white. It's comforting, it's predictable. But here's the catch. Your steps leave no trace.
Why no trace?
Because every square is identical. If you step on square 50, it's the exact same as square 10. You are interchangeable. You can follow the rules perfectly, you can play hopscotch, but you cannot create anything new there. You are just traversing the grid.
And Hall 2?
Hall 2 is the Penrose floor, the field. Every step you take lands on a unique configuration of stars and boats and diamonds.
And because it never repeats.
Your path is unique. No one has ever walked that specific sequence of geometry before, and no one ever will again. In Hall 2, walking isn't just movement, it's creation. Your path becomes part of the design.
But it's scarier. You don't know what the next tile is.
It is scarier. It's anxiety-inducing. But it's the only place where becoming actually happens.
The text ends with this idea of the ground, though, just to get one last metaphysical twist in there.
Right. Tosha says, ultimately, don't get too fixated on the tiles themselves. Whether it's the checkerboard or the Penrose, they are just a surface. Focus on the floor beneath the floor, the substrate.
Which is consciousness.
Or the ground of being. The idea is that the checkerboard and the Penrose patterns are just two ways of seeing the exact same underlying reality. The checkerboard is what happens when you try to force reality into a binary filter. Get black and white.
And the Penrose.
That's what happens when you take the filter off. You see the infinite, relational, non-repeating truth.
So bringing this down to earth, we've gone from the supermarket barcode all the way to a 6D shadow. What does this actually mean for you listening to this while, say, stuck in traffic or washing dishes? Why should you care about higher dimensional geometry?
I think it's about permission. Permission to be complex. We live in a world that aggressively pushes the checkerboard. Social media algorithms, political polarization, corporate ladders, they all want us to be binary. Us versus them. Success versus failure. Like versus dislike.
They want us to be that scannable barcode from the very beginning.
Exactly. They want us to be predictable units. But this text and the physics of quasicrystals is saying that is not how nature works at its deepest level. The reality of your own memory and the atoms in the strongest alloys is a periodic. It's ordered, yes, there is truth, but it doesn't repeat.
You are not a broken cube.
You are not a broken cube. You are a functioning, infinite pattern. And that friction you feel, that feeling of not fitting in, that might just be the slippery nature of your own complexity.
Order need not imply repetition. That is the core message, and that is going to stick with me.
It's a powerful mantra.
I also just really like the idea that being complex makes you harder to break. That's a nice little ego boost.
Resilience through non-conformity. It's physically proven.
Well, I think I'm going to go stare at my bathroom floor for a while and have an existential crisis, but in a good way.
Just don't try to retile it yourself. Penrose tiles are incredibly hard to find at the hardware store.
Duly noted. I want to leave you, listener, with a challenge from the very end of the book. Next time you feel like you are failing to move in a straight line, or you feel like you're spiraling, stop. Consider the possibility that you aren't failing to be a circle. You are succeeding at being a spiral. Consider that you might just be a quasicrystal, projecting a higher dimensional order that just looks like a mess to everyone else in 3D.
And maybe that shadow you're casting is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We will see you in the next dimension.
Take care.